Hello, school district stakeholders. My name is Karen Gaborik. I'm superintendent of the Fairbanks North Starborough School District, and I'd like to share the highlights of my proposed budget to the school board with you, which has just been released. So you can find all this information in great detail on the school district website, but I'm going to give you the highlights. So I'd like to talk about revenue assumptions that I've made in this particular budget. I'm not anticipating any change to the base student allocation, which is the basic funding formula from the state. I'm also counting on that forward funding from the state, and that equates to about $3 million for Fairbanks. And I've also included the exact same level of local contribution from the borough that we had last year. I want to talk a little bit about fund balance. There were a lot of newspaper articles about how much money the school district had in the bank. So though that number has reduced, we started out with $33 million that we had saved. We had a planned utilization this year of $12.7 million. So that took us down to just over $20 million. We had unexpected expenses this fiscal year that also reduced that number. Because of our continued decline in student enrollment, which has been pretty significant, we took a hit of about $3.1 million in revenue that we did not receive from the state this year that we were anticipating. And then the board also allocated $7.4 million for 2 school roof projects, and they've allocated that money to the borough for those projects. So that takes our unrestricted fund balance that we have available to use in the coming year's budget to under 10 million, about 9.83 million. So in terms of revenue, about 62% of our funding in the school district comes from the state, 25% comes from the borough, 9% comes from the federal government, and about 4% comes from other places, including fund balance. In terms of the big picture with expenditures, about 87% of our budget each year is allocated towards salaries and benefits. And because we employ people, right, to provide public education to students, so that's our biggest cost is people. And counting our certified staff and our classified staff, support staff, we have over 1,600 full-time equivalent positions, and then we also have a few administrative positions as well. So let me give you the highlights. My philosophy this year for the proposed budget that I am presenting to the school board is to maintain the current level of services to students that we have this year. And an important piece of that is maintaining the class size target. So I have not changed any of the class size targets this year. They are the same next year, I'm proposing, as they are this year. So we will have some reductions in teachers, though, because of our significant decline in enrollment. And so we're over 400 students. We're projected to have 400 fewer students than we were anticipating. So we need to adjust the number of teachers because of that. So what that will mean is district-wide, we will have 13 fewer elementary teachers. We also have Discovery Peak Charter School, which is opening, and that's a charter school out in North Pole, so I am reallocating some teacher positions from the North Pole elementary schools and also North Pole Middle School to the charter school. I'm making just a couple investments at the elementary level. I'm adding a teacher to Joy Elementary to support their K-8 programming. I've added a prevention intervention specialist to Tickosick Brown to help provide support to that school. So at the secondary level, again, some teacher reductions because of declining enrollment at the secondary level. That will equate to about 8.7 fewer teachers district-wide at the secondary school. And again, we're going to shift a couple teaching positions from North Pole Middle to Discovery Peak. And then once we know where students come from in the North Pole schools and through the lottery go to Discovery Peak, then we'll make sure those numbers all match the way they need to. Also at the secondary level, we are adding 1.5 full-time equivalent positions, teaching positions to North Pole High School and West Valley High School in the area of career technical education. So we want to be sure to meet the increasing needs in that area for students. I'm also adding a 0.5 prevention intervention specialist to North Pole High School and also a 0.5 prevention intervention specialist to North Pole Middle School. Those two adds will take those schools up to full-time, 1.0 full-time positions, prevention intervention specialist positions, to help support the needs at those schools. District-wide, we're reducing at the district office in the administrative services area. We're reducing, kind of condensing, reorganizing things, so making a reduction of 1.5 positions here. We're also making just a couple investments at the district-wide level. One is I'm proposing that we reclassify our grade 5 secretaries to grade 6. And this is so that their salary better matches the job description and the duties that we ask secretaries in those positions to do in this district. We're also making a fairly significant investment in curriculum materials. So this is K-12 in the areas of English language arts and social studies. And these are materials that are needed to bring those grade levels up to speed, and so that teachers have what they need in those particular content areas. And then I'm also recommending that we invest in a cybersecurity officer position. If you've been following the news, Matt Sue has had trouble, the borough and the school district Valdez has had trouble. Data has been compromised, and so we need to work on cybersecurity and make sure, to the degree possible, that our data in this district is protected. There's some unknowns that we still will need to grapple with this spring. And of course, funding from the state is a big unknown. The governor's budget is due February 13th, and we can expect cuts, it sounds like. It sounds like cuts across the board, and education is one of the largest, it is the largest expenditure that the state has. So I think we can anticipate some cuts to education in the governor's proposed budget. We also need to look at the borough contribution, and I think the board needs to have conversations about what the local contributions should be. We also don't know what our labor costs will be next year, because we are currently in negotiations with all 3 of our employee bargaining units. So we're in negotiations with our support staff, with our teachers, and our principals. So we do not know what those increased labor costs will be. So we need to be sure that we will have to allocate additional funds for that as well. So I think the initial focus in terms of advocacy for the school district and funding, the initial focus will need to be on Juneau, and again, really taking a look at what the governor proposes, and then advocating with the interior delegation and all of the big hitters in Juneau in terms of supporting public education in Alaska. We also need to keep an eye on cuts that might be proposed to municipalities in terms of the community assistance revenue that they received. If PERS-TERS costs are shifted, sometimes those things then fall on us. The cuts to the municipalities sometimes get then passed to school districts, so we have to be careful of that. So then the second layer of advocacy will be when the Borough Assembly then considers the school district budget, and we will need folks to advocate for a local contribution that meets the needs of the school district. You can find information on our website, www.k12northstar.org. There's a great big budget link on the front page, and that will take you to the budget website. Lots of information posted there, and we'll keep that current. And then also on that page, there's a button where you can give input regarding the school district budget. And that input goes directly to the school board. It's unfiltered, and it's sent to them about every 2 weeks, so they have it each time they have a regular meeting or they have a work session. On that note, the school board will have work sessions between now and spring break, essentially, mid-March, and so they'll talk about budget and work on it. They have to make their final determinations regarding a recommended budget that they will then send to the Borough Assembly. They have to make that by March 22nd so that we can get it ready for the Borough by April 1st. So again, lots of information available on the website. We really appreciate your interest in the school district budget and those processes, and encourage you to follow through board meetings what's happening in the dialogue that the school board has around budget, to send them input, but most importantly, to please advocate for funding for public education in Fairbanks, both with the legislature in Juneau and with the Borough Assembly. So thank you, and I look forward to future updates that we'll provide.